Okay, y'all ready for a lecture? Talk about the importance of nothing. You get up every day, you're entitled to nothing. Nobody owes you nothing. You could have talent, but if you don't have discipline and you don't execute, you don't focus, what do you get? Nothing. If you're complacent and not paying attention to detail, what does that get you? Nothing. So, nothing is acceptable but your best. So, we need to be, everything is determined by what you do and you trying to be your best so that you can build on positive performance so that, and that's the only thing, there should be nothing else, right, but that, for everybody. So that's what we have to stay focused on. That's what we need to do. Um, and, we got rained out today, so we had to go inside. And we need to not accept anything but our best in terms of what we're doing in preparation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Blue Abroad Show, Monday, the 24th of March, 2025. We're here after another loss, a round 2 loss to the Hawks. I've got Sean from the Prendercast here. Mate, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
This is usually like a break glass in case of emergency type situation. But we're here.
It feels that way. I don't know if that's the intention, but it feels like that.
Yeah, listen, it's been an interesting couple of weeks to start the season.
That's putting it mildly. And it is interesting because I think we kind of, as a supporter base, as fans of any kind of football, we sort of have to divorce ourselves from, and I'm sure we'll get into it. And we spoke about it. Fab and I spoke about it on our show, which we recorded yesterday. Round one, inexcusable, embarrassing, humiliating, no excuse. Thursday night wasn't that bad. Like, we lost the game, which is really disappointing, but the actual performance and there were some real positives out of Thursday night. If we want to win the game, and losing the game is bad. But I think that football, sport in general, has become this rolling kind of, the narrative is about like catastrophe or the flip. So you look at St Kilda in round one, embarrassing. What are they doing? Where are they going? What's this about? How are they looking? North Melbourne. When will the wheel ever turn? They'll never be any good. Everyone's gone past them. And then a week later, it's, geez, Tom DeConning would watch that Saints performance and he'd want to be a part of that. And you're kind of going, well, sorry, a week ago they were a basket case. Where were they? What were they doing? North the same. They both had wonderful results independently. And the flip for us is, yeah, we lose to Hawthorn, but we were okay. We played all right. We weren't quite good enough to win, but there were positives, I think, is what I'm trying to get at. So it's an interesting, very hyper, what's the word I'm looking for? Everything's very present, like outrage, ecstasy, everything's in the moment. And at the moment, I think we're kind of riding that roller coaster a little bit too hard of, we've lost a game, therefore it must just be a disaster. And it's like, I'm not quite sure if that's the case.
It's ultra sensitive at the moment.
Mm.
Ultra. Do you think it's because it's just early in the season and the recency bias is so recent? Or, I mean, naturally, the record from GWS last year is getting brought into conversations pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I've seen a bit of a divide on, we just did the rating show and then it turned into, should we sack Voss, should we not? The board, the head of football, which I'm sure we'll get into in this show. I'd love to, but it's extreme either way at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the thing. I'm going to say it a million times. I know I am. Hate losing. Hate losing. But generally speaking, this week there's some bye weeks for us to get through as a footy community. Generally speaking, 8, 9 teams lose every week. You hate being one of those teams, but we've always had this thing. We've said it from time to time. There was a game last year where we didn't play overly well, but we won the game. Might have even been Richmond in round one, and we were talking about it. And we said that realistically, we'll play better than this and lose. There'll be occasions in which we're better than we were tonight, but we'll lose the game. And in much the same way, shelving Richmond, debacle, awful. We were okay on Thursday night. We didn't win. That doesn't mean there aren't positives. That doesn't mean that certain players weren't better. That doesn't mean that certain elements of the way we play football wasn't better. I think there is stuff that we can take out of and unpack from Thursday night that will hold us in good stead. And we'll know on Friday night how much of that is real again. So sensitive is the perfect word. I think everyone in fandom is on tenterhooks. Everyone's like, even movie criticisms become like this. You might notice people out there that something comes out and it's either the greatest thing of all time or the biggest disaster of all time. And you're like, no, maybe it's just okay. And that's fine as well. There is a middle ground, but everyone wants to rush to Twitter and have the most succinct, the most damning, the most outraged tweet to sum up another loss, another disaster, when it probably wasn't like that. So I'm sure we'll get into it, but it is an interesting kind of thing to
Totally.
unpack in its own right.
Totally. So yeah, we'll touch on Thursday. I am mindful of wanting to move forward and look ahead, not to forget about anything. But I mean, I woke up this morning and I was like, I've been pretty emotional in my own way as well, and I just checked myself. I'm like, oh, okay. It's shit house, absolutely shit house. I'm not happy with what's happening. I don't know how many times I can say the football department is failing and the head of football must go
Is there
for it
part
to
of you
get
though,
through.
in terms of like, yeah, but you know what's interesting about it too? Maybe what we're experiencing as well is a sense of, because I'm in the same boat, and you know, we've had those conversations, you and I, our show's had those conversations for a long while. When you've been saying something for so long, ultimately you, me, the listeners, the viewers, if you agree with us collectively, we can't change that. So there's almost this acceptance that we all think that there needs to be change in the football department administratively, from a leadership point of view, from an ideas point of view, from a standards point of view. You're in that boat. We're in that boat. We can't do anything about it. So whilst the problem persists, we sort of have to. We all probably have an idea or an inkling as to why the problem persists, but we actually can't change it. The football club has to wake up to it at some point and change it. And until that happens, when you lose a game, you're 0-2, you know, you're laboring through the season a bit. We've been talking about it for so long that it's kind of like, well, we're just repeating ourselves. And until it changes,
Yeah.
and until we see what change might do for the fortunes of the footy club, we're not surprised, I suppose. Does that make any sense? We're not surprised that we're back here having the same conversation about Brad Lloyd leading a football department that didn't make enough changes in the off season. Is that maybe why we're stagnating a little bit? Didn't inject enough new ideas. So until that happens, it's that classic, you know, definition of insanity thing, because
Yeah.
it feels like there's only so many ways you, me, anyone else can talk about Brad Lloyd particularly.
Yeah. So turning to Thursday, I mean, it does seem a bit doomsday. And I do understand it because I feel it in parts too. But my perception when I watched the replay was the intensity wasn't the issue, the execution was, which is, you know, first half of 2023 areas where intensity was kind of there. They just couldn't be efficient with the ball. So how do you summarize Thursday, as in what went wrong, what went right?
Anyone who's saw, one of the benefits of being the Thursday night game, if you lose, is that by the time it gets to the Sunday, like the first cracks of the world, the AFL 360s of the world, they've all spent the weekend unpacking the game. They've spent Friday and maybe Saturday morning unpacking the game. So they don't really talk about you. So you can kind of watch those games without fear of being dragged back under. But David King, they spoke about our match for literally 30 seconds, maybe. but for one of the first times in the footy media in terms of presenting a really rational perspective on Carlton. Did you see any of his clip?
No.
So it's very, very, hunt it down if you're interested. Literally, it's 30 seconds. And he basically goes, look, Carlton aren't that far away. There were a few, and he played a few examples of we're just not taking enough ground. When we had opportunities to break out, and he played 3 or 4 clips, we're just not having that extra handball to get the ball into more space. We're not running to launch zone. We're just sort of bombing it in. And he kind of goes, this isn't a huge problem. On the night, it's maybe cost them. But in terms of something that they're able to fix, it's not a catastrophe. And we've spoken a lot about it on our show about that launch zone thing. And this was that in a nutshell. It was you're out and you've got Hawthorn retreating and you've maybe got 2-on-2s ahead of the ball, maybe an outnumber of 3-on-2. But you can run and carry and hedge and draw. And you can use a teammate on by hands or whatever the case. And we just didn't do it. And what that is in the aftermath, when you see it play out, you're just letting your opposition off. It's not something that they're doing well. They're not lulling you into panic and into that kick. They're not creating pressure that creates a brain fade or whatever. And I think that kind of summed it up. We just let them off a few times. And look, like, again, trying to be glass half full, I thought it was a pretty even game. I thought they were 2 relatively even teams. I thought throughout the course of Thursday night, both teams had period of a game in which they thought they'd have control. Sam Mitchell spoke at halftime and said, we're lucky to be as close as we are. They have outplayed us to this point. And I asked the question on our show yesterday of Fab. I said, give me one 50-50 on the night that went our way. And I'm talking the bounce of a ball, a goal review, a decision, whatever the case may be. And when you're in a rut, when you're in a funk, it just feels like you just don't get any luck. We've had the Jack Silvani pushing the back on the goal line, which was pretty harsh. That happens a lot. Shepherd's on the goal line, paid. We had Jesse Motlop's, nicked the post. We've
Oh,
had
the Schnicko.
and he's sort of like, Jesus, incredible. Jack Silvani, fair play to Josh Battles, got back, and I think it was Battle. He's got it right on the back of the line, and it's a touch, and you go, fuck. And then we're on a bit of a roll. We're playing some good football. We're getting some confidence. And we had the free kick, which should have been paid, and a 50, which should have been paid, which would have given us another shot at goal. And you're sort of going, on a night in which you lose by 20 points and the game's in the balance with 5 or 6 minutes left, geez, 1 or 2 of those go our way at a crucial time, and it's a real fillip. We're just in a bit of a phase of football at the moment where it feels like none of that goes our way. So, like I said, I think there was some good stuff. There was some bad stuff. There's some stuff to work on. There's some stuff that is, to quote Michael Voss, looks more like us, where you go, okay, I can see that's a bit better. But that ball movement stuff and that launch zone stuff was really illustrative of that's where it's breaking down. You're just not actually taking something that the opposition are kind of giving you, which you could then hurt them with, which then makes you more dangerous. So, yeah, I think that it feels 0-2 is not good. Don't get me wrong. But Thursday night, I think, was at least a positive step. What it means for this week, we have to wait and see, but it felt like a step in the right direction. Bearing in mind, a few things went wrong for us when we played the Hawks last year. They blew us off the park. They beat us by 80 points.
Yeah.
So to roll in last week and really, with a team that's in form, super confident, and for patches of the game really play better than them, I think there is a positive there.
How much of the execution part of the game that we're clearly not good enough at, how much do you think it's on the players and on the coaching?
It probably varies, like instance to instance, because the role of a coaching group is you need to seed examples like so when they show it back, when they review these clips, they should be able to expressly talk to coaching, and we've spoken about this, or like I'll give you an example. So the stuff I do at the Box Hill Hawks, last week we played Essendon in a practice match, and there was a part of the game which was it's basically, it's a drill. They do this. It's a defensive drill. And they very expressly do this drill for this express purpose when this scenario pops up in the game. And I remember I watched the stream later just to see if there were any highlights. 'Cause I wasn't there, unfortunately, but I remember coming to that bit and going, "Oh, that's the drill. That's the drill has a name." I was like, "That's the drill. Yeah, cool." And then in the team meeting, they had a chat about a particular aspect of the drill where they allowed Essendon to kick up the middle, which is sort of, you're not meant to do that in that drill. And I remember thinking, geez, I hope we have examples like this. I remember thinking, geez, I hope we have examples of, we can bring up the tape from Thursday night and say, this is expressly what we train, this is the drill we use, and this is not how we play. Here's an example of it, because that's the only way the players will know and should know that they've not executed right. Because we're trained to do it a particular way in this drill, and here's an example of us not doing it. So without knowing if that's happening, it's always hard. You always hope that the players have a bit of an instinct or a feel for it. Like there was one where Ollie got it and he kicked it. I think he kicked it to the 2-on-1, and Kemp made not a bad contest of it and they were able to clear it. But you hope that that's just a case of when we review it again, I think Walsh maybe gave it to Ollie up by the hands and he set off and he had someone on the inside, and you're thinking, hopefully that's just an instinct thing that the players will understand in that situation. Mate, just keep going. Just keep running. And you need a bit of talk. If that's me breaking out, I need a bit of you to kind of go, keep going. You're on. So who's to blame? Quote. It's hard to know, but it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hot until the end of the weekend about it. When I watched the replay properly, I wasn't as mad about the game in isolation. Do you think losing round one make the difference?
Yeah.
Into sentiment right now? Like had we beaten Richmond round one, which I know we didn't, so I don't want to talk too much in hypotheticals, but the lingering effect, because the Richmond loss was a lingering frustration from last season where that ended. And I think that's got something to do with where we find ourselves today as well.
Absolutely. No, if we take care of business against Richmond and you roll in against the Hawks and that the game plays out exactly the same, I think most people's perspective would be pretty nip and tuck, a little bit, could have gone each way, games in the balance, till relatively late in the because who kicks, is it Sicily who kicks Hawthorn's the second to last goal where you're like, we're 8 or 9 points down or something, and you're like, you get the next goal, it's a kick, and there's a sprint finish. They get the next one, and then we kind of got to try to chase the next one, and then Watson kicks it, and you're like, that's how you get that 3 and a bit goal gap. But yeah, 100%. If we take care of business against Richmond, I think the fans' perspective of exactly the same performance against Hawthorn would be kinder. It would be a bit more, look, disappointing, but something to work with.
Yeah. I don't know how much you can reveal, given you mentioned you work with Box Hill, but I did want to touch on development. My perception of the end of last year was, okay, Martin, Marchie, Kennedy, these types, for different reasons, no longer with us. So my perception was, okay, someone in the pack of Lemmy, Moya, Binns, Cooper Lord, Billy Wilson, my perception was, maybe 1 or 2 of them will pop up and get some minutes and happy days, away we go, the next layer. So you've worked with Box Hill, so you've seen the development program more than what most of us would have, and you've been there for a while. So what can you say about the development of the Hawks that are now playing in the AFL that you used to watch in the VFL?
It feels like Hawthorn, and I think we're getting there. I think we're doing a little bit more of this stuff, and maybe this is why we're impatient about it. I think Hawthorn have always been a little bit more patient. Like they're prepared to play a Josh Ward, who's a top 5 or 6 draft pick. They're prepared to play him in the 2s if there's not necessarily a spot for him in the 1s, or if they want him to focus on something development wise, they're prepared to play him in the 2s and play him in the 2s for 3 and 4 weeks. Whereas I think you look back at our guys, and if we had done that from the start, it probably would have been better medium to long term. If we had done that from the start with Samo and Dow, it would have been better, I think. But there also would have been the questions of why aren't you playing them? Why aren't you playing him? And we maybe weren't strong enough with the messaging or to just come out and say they're not quite ready. We got them focusing on some things. We're having them develop a little bit off Broadway, build some confidence, et cetera, et cetera. I think that there's a little bit of patience. I think, and again, I think Carlton, from a twos perspective, ever since bringing the VFL program back in house, I think they're getting a little bit more in line with this. But so Carlton played Box Hill on Friday night, and I think Box Hill were probably. I think we were. It's weird saying we and talking in the Carlton context. I think Box Hill were the better side, a little bit wasteful, ended up being 11-14 to 12-4, I think it was. So the game should have been over, but to Carlton's credit, they really rallied late in the last quarter and kicked the last five, I think it was, to set up a grandstand finish. But in the off season, so Box Hill had a disappointing season last year, lost a elimination final. Well, we've gone out and recruited Kai de Klaes, who was Melbourne listed, is an absolute just state league star, just ready to go, mid to late 20s, massive, can just have an impact immediately. And he was really good on the weekend. Went out and recruited Trent Bianco, played a lot of big games for Collingwood, team of the year and state league representative last year out at Footscray. He comes across. Corey Preston's a guy that's played for Williamstown, played for Werribee, absolutely ready to go. And then there's a wave of Cal Porter's been at the footy club for 5 years. He's his captain. Stu Horner's been at the footy club for 9 or 10 years. Super continuity, great clubman. Um, gets it, everything all like that. And then there's a layer of kind of younger guys who have been at the Box Hill, this is the VFL system, and developing for 3-4 years, and now are playing senior football because they're ready to. Like a Jake Arundel or Ethan Stanley comes back from Fremantle, having been at Box Hill initially. And I think that Carlton's reserves are starting to do a little bit of stuff like that, getting someone like an Ethan Phillips in, who was obviously with Hawthorn last year and played a bit with Box Hill, as a guy who he's ready to play. He's ready to play football, and he'll play football regularly, and he'll impact regularly, and he'll be a good leader. But that is so important to underpinning your development program, because for so long we've expected, and the expectation from a Carlton perspective has felt like, this is Ashton Moyer's second year, isn't it? Second year on the list.
Yeah.
So the expectation of Ashton Moyer for so long has felt like it's, why isn't he banging the door down in the twos? And it's like, he's a second year player playing senior football in the strongest, the second tier competition, the best state league. Why is the expectation that he dominates playing, a third tall, a half forward type role? If he does, that's unbelievable. But if he doesn't, it shouldn't be a surprise. The expectation and the pressure on him shouldn't be to do that. It should be he gets ably supported by a layer of senior-ish leadership types at that level who can help him and chaperone him and mentor him and help develop him, which I think is something that Box Hill has done so well for so long. And I was just thinking of a name, like Moyer's a current one, but those other guys are a great example of, like, we expect Samo or Dowie as 18, 19-year-old kids to go back and with very, very little support, dominate. And when you lose, you mentioned you're like a Marchbank, Cunningham, Jack Martin, Matty Kennedy. Well, the guys that have pushed up to replace them from a VFL or a development seconds perspective, they're all kids. They're all brand new. They're all kids. So there's been a layer of ready to go, ready to contribute. Even a guy like Chincotta is obviously injured at the moment, not playing. Well, if he's playing twos, he's an incredible asset for that team on the field as a leader, all that kind of stuff. So when we've cut back, that senior program of those 3 and 4 guys who are injured a little bit, the flow and effect of that is their replacements become kids who are raw.
Yeah.
And then that probably doesn't strengthen the twos development platform. So I think, yeah, for me, it's about patience, is what Box Hill and Hawthorn have done really, really well with the AFL listed guys, and then building a program that a lot of Box Hill listed guys want to be a part of for a long time. And that creates a really much needed layer of continuity. So, like I said, from the outside looking in, it feels like Carlton's trying to get there, but it's just going to take time from that reserves perspective. So yeah, I think there's a few things at play there that they're trying to do better and trying to get right, and hopefully that'll start to happen, in the next little while.
Yeah, interesting. How early into Sam Mitchell's coaching at Box Hill did you realize that he was what he's going to be or what he is?
Yeah, very quickly. Yeah, there was he would do like the he wouldn't necessarily do the opposition like scouting report thing, but just sort of there would be someone that would do that. But just very, very clear, like just crystal clear in what he wanted, what he expected. I remember him. It was after a practice game. I remember him playing a clip in a team meeting on the Tuesday night, and a couple clips, and he just illustrated just defensive stuff, for instance, and transition stuff. And he just said, if you don't run, you won't play. Because it's really that simple. Because if you don't run, you won't play. And he basically said, this is sort of a warning for everybody, because I'm not singling. I could have used other clips using other players. And he basically said, look, if it happens again, it's like you're out. It doesn't matter who you are in the team, etc. But that was really, really, really early on. And the interesting thing is, like, so the season he coached us, we only played 10 games in the VFL because it was stop-start with COVID and then it was abandoned. I think we would have won the flag. So we'd rolled, like, I put a post up, the last time we played Carlton at Princess Park prior to this past Friday night was 2021, kicked 14 goals in a row. The week
Wow.
earlier, I'm not sure of the dates, but the week earlier we kicked 10 goals, and I think it was 10 or 11 goals to 1 or something stupid in the last quarter against North Melbourne. In the last game of the year, similar, against Collingwood, outscored them by 10 goals in the last quarter. And you could sort of, in retrospect, you're like, geez, we're going pretty well, and like he's coaching really well, and he's got everyone humming. But in retrospect, it was like, oh, this is kind of what it is now at Hawthorn. Like, this is, when it's working, it's an unbelievable, really powerful, really cohesive, confident sort of outfit. But yeah, there were moments where like he'd be explaining something or he'd say something in a team meeting, and you just sort of went, "Oh shit, that's wow. I hadn't thought of that." Or he'd say something unbelievably like perceptive or whatever. So no, very, very impressive from the get-go. And like, even like, to be fair, I think it's fair to say that was his first crack at senior coaching, coaching his own team. And in the 3 and a bit years since, I think that's fair to say he's gotten better. So um yeah, I remember sending a message to, when Teague was on the rocks, I remember sending a message to someone who had a line into the board and just saying, if there's any movement, this guy's the real deal.
You
If
said
there's
that
any
to the,
doubt,
you
we
said
have a
that to
contact.
Carlton.
So we have like a bit of a contact who has an in sort of has a line to the board, as someone on the board. And I remember just saying, if there's any doubt or if there's any conversations going on, so this guy's the real deal.
Wow. Where do you sit on, or do you engage in the conversation around our coaching and Voss in particular? Because it was a brief discussion on the ratings, which became pretty animated because there was a lot of people. Maybe it was just a chat, like, no, it has to go. Like, season's over. And then there are others. I mean, I'm in the camp of, I think it's a bit early, like after 2 rounds. But then there's others that are, no, well, if you know, then do it now. I can't believe we're having this conversation already. But yeah, where do you engage in that? Do you sit somewhere in that?
So there's a great line, I used it on our show last week. If anyone's seen the Class of 92 doco, there's a great line where they sack their manager. I don't know if they're in League Two at the time. I think they're in the National League, but they sacked their manager like 5 or 6 games into the season. And all the Twitter posts on the announcement are, can't believe they're sacking him 5 games into the year. You've got to give him time, whatever. And someone makes the point, no, they're not sacking him after 5 games. He's had this job for 2.5 years. This isn't about 5 games. This isn't about 0-2. This is about the end to 2022. This is about the start to 2023. This is about the end to 2024. As injuries were a really opportunistic out because we were decimated. But this is about the way the football program under Michael Voss has been run for 4 pre-seasons and 3 and a bit seasons of on-field action now, this is not a short, or shouldn't be a short-term lens. It shouldn't be a short-term conversation, because he's had a lot of time to mold this footy team and mold how we want to play. And we should be at the stage now where the way we play football is in its 3rd generation of, it started as this, and then we've bolted on this, or we've evolved this, or we've added this. And what we saw against Richmond was a complete absence of any kind of DNA, any kind of how we want to play football, move the ball, our game awareness, how we react to certain situations now should be in the players' like bone marrow.
Mm.
And it's not.
Yeah.
It's clearly not. So, look, I don't want this to come across as I'm saying backing him, because I'm not saying that at the moment. But I think we'd be foolish not to think things. I think things are on a bit of a knife's edge. I think things are volatile at the moment, and if results don't come, what did Stephen Trigg famously said? The wins and losses are starting to matter.
Yeah.
If wins don't come, then a conversation has to happen. And look, we've heard a few things about Graham Wright being incredibly proactive down there and being very busy. This is a guy that's been involved independently in 2 very successful programs. In Hawthorn initially as a recruiter, Collingwood as a footy boss. And in both occasions, he's shown himself not to be one who will sit around and wait. And I think the current Carlton administration has used stability as a bit of a crutch. Well, sometimes making no decision is the worst decision. Like I was thinking about even if anyone follows or watches F1, like Red Bull Racing might have lost the constructors title last year no matter what they did, but the absolute reason they lost it is because they didn't replace Sergio Perez, who was in free fall and was costing them points every single weekend. That's why they lost the title. They might still have lost the title if they pulled the trigger and replaced him. But the fact that they did nothing is what just kept them sliding. We've spoken about it. Don't want to harp on. Kept Andrew Russell for too long. You can make the argument, kept Brad Lloyd for too long. Hoping that things work out, hoping that the wheel turns. So I'm confident that Graham Wright, A, I think he's a good operator. B, he understands the footy space and what makes that work really, really well. And I think if he thinks a decision has to be made, or it gets to the point where a decision has to be made, I think he'll make it.
Yeah. So I have I guess it's a fear. And mine is, if we went down that path of removing the coach within a month of a season starting, that so many others have to leave with him. And I would hate to get into another situation where it's just the coach that leaves and someone like Brad Lloyd stays, or the board members who are a part of this whole generation stay as well. And so I'm resistant to it because I just don't want the worst case scenario happening. And I find myself so conflicted in any given moment.
I think fans have this fans think that sometimes like moving on the coach or sacking the coach reflects poorly on them personally.
Yeah.
They got this weird, interesting relationship with, or like rival clubs will like, oh, you sacked the coach again. Oh, just that'll fix it again. What? And it's kind of like, no, the conversation is a bit more nuanced than that. It's like we shouldn't just keep a guy because of what it looks like to someone else. If you don't think ultimately he's the guy. You mentioned before the idea that if you think he's not your man, if you know he's not your man, the worst thing Essendon did a couple of years ago, they made their mind up that Worsfold wasn't the guy, and they just let him coach the year out. Port Adelaide have made their mind up that Hinkley's not the guy, and he's coaching the team, and you're kind of like, well, what does this mean for the footy club and the players? And it is a bit awkward. Hawthorn ultimately didn't do it, but initially they'd said that Clarko will coach next year and Sam will continue to develop, and then he'll take over the year after. And then enough of them just obviously came to it's not going to work. This isn't going to work. So if they decide, if the results of the performances get to a point where a decision has to be made, then you got to make the decision. You can't. the question then becomes, I mean, I don't want to rumor monger because like what's true, what isn't true, what happened, et cetera. But like after Richmond, there were a few rumors about uh, Voss and another coach in a heated discussion. Um, we've got it on very good authority that Graham Wright was apoplectic and he was like just furious and asking questions and the like. Part of me sort of goes, that's good.
Yeah, so it should be. I would hope that that's happening.
If I'm an assistant coach, say for instance, say you're my assistant, I'm the senior coach and you're my assistant, and you witness what we saw against Richmond, you kind of just nodding and agreeing and being a bit of a yes man and protecting your job because you don't want to rock the boat, because if you rock the boat, you might get tossed out. That's ultimately not good. Like that's probably not good for the football program. If you've actually got something to offer and say about why we're doing this, why do we do this, you didn't do this, why didn't we do this, then that's ultimately how you kind of improve, hopefully, down the line. Um, yeah, look, I'm of this opinion where I mentioned it earlier, like you and I can't affect change at the football club, but if those who are in a position to affect change decide to, we kind of just have to roll with it.
Yeah.
And if it gets to the point where internally they're like, no, look, someone A, B, C, whatever's got to go, then I would like to think it's an informed decision, and it's a decision that's being made in the long-term interest of the footy club, and it's a decision that's being made because things have gotten to a point where something has to be done. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll wait. And look, we're forecasting potentially months down the line here,
Well,
and
this
fingers
is
crossed
where,
it doesn't get to
yeah,
this.
this is where I'm thinking, like, isn't this I don't know, a midway point of the season conversation? Like, I feel like my whole perception of what should and shouldn't happen is now completely uncertain. Like 2 games in, we're talking about this.
But this is
But I
it. That's what I said
understand it's
earlier.
not just 2
It's
games.
not 2 games in, is it?
I understand. I understand
It's
that.
the end. It's the end to last year, and
Yep.
it's the final. It's the elimination final, which was from a planning point of view, from a selection point of view, from a game day point of view, it was a debacle. It's an absolute debacle.
Yep.
And if I'm Graham Wright, and I've
And then when you don't
seen
get the
teams,
response in the preparation in round 1.
if I'm Graham Wright and I've seen teams execute successful premiership campaigns, I'm probably noticing things that aren't being done or aren't being done as well as they
Yeah.
should be or can be done better. So I think Carlton is an interesting watch just because of Graham Wright. We spoke about it, I think we did a little while ago. So Brian Cook has probably done quite a good job, but he's also been relatively unobtrusive, and I think he's been kind of happy to let things play out. I don't think that's Graham Wright because
Mm.
Brian Cook knew that there was a shelf life on his appointment, and it was 2 years, 3 years, whatever it's ended up being. Whereas Graham Wright's coming in effectively in control, kind of at the moment, and will be for certain before too long. And it's his job, it's his ship to steer, it's his role. So he has to make decisions that actually affect how the club runs on his watch. So that sort of excites me in a way because I
Totally.
think he's proven to be a great operator. He's proven to have gotten it right a bunch of times. So we just have to wait and see how it goes.
LS Fadamaja, what happens if it's the complete opposite? What if a caretaker coach takes us to finals? Worst case scenario, you rule out everyone inside the club as a potential candidate moving forward. Well,
Fab and I have spoken about this a lot. I love, and clubs don't really do this. And maybe it's not realistic. I don't know. We might have spoken about it after the Teague one, but why don't more clubs do the out and out interim coach? You get the complete outsider. And you can keep some assistants, no problem. You can keep some assistants, but you get the out and out outsider to come in to steer the ship for however many games are left. And you don't say to him, you've got the job or you're the permanent guy, but you just go, come in, complete fresh eyes, no preconceived notions, no relationships being colored, no color in your opinion or your perspectives, and just what do you see? Because sometimes you can be too close to what's happening, and an assistant coach can come in and make some really obvious, sorry, like a caretaker assistant can come in and make some really obvious changes. But sometimes the fun in a proper interim is they can come in and just be like, I'm just starting from day one. I've got no preconceived ideas. This is my perspective. Let's see how it goes. Because if you just deferring to who's already there and expecting things to be markedly different is probably a bit naive,
Mhm.
because they've been part of the system that hasn't worked.
Call me crazy. Is there a reality where it, like, they pound the rock and then the rock cracks and then it just clicks?
Well, what turned us around in 23? It was Camp Kerno.
Camp
And they went
Kerno
down there
getting
and
in
they had
such a
a bit of a
hole that
heart to
everyone doesn't
heart.
give a shit about you or giving you any
Yeah.
expectation. I mean, sort of something resembling self-pride,
So we had a conversation yesterday about, and this is just because we don't know the absolute ins and outs of how pre-seasons unfolded and whatnot. So look, I had two sort of independent people with lines to the footy club tell me during the course of last week that there are sections of the playing group who are just a bit confused about what do you want from us? Or what are we,
Mm.
how are we doing? What are you, okay? So that's a problem because that's a communication problem. That's a serious issue. Are we maybe just not a team that benefits or is built to be overly structured, overly taught in the classroom? Is that something that maybe just doesn't suit us potentially? And that's potentially passing the buck and, not how modern footy's played, but like at the AFL level, there's a lot of staring at a screen, staring at footage, staring at this is, structures and all that kind of stuff. And I mentioned earlier stuff, being in your bone marrow and your DNA being just on display in year four of a coach. But there are that can just be on the field, trained, get touch, do drills, the ball movement. How do we want to do it? And just play with that. Just go end to end like it's basketball. One team on attack, one team in transition defense, and just have a real kind of bare bones. Look at quote unquote structure up on the whiteboard. I don't know, because it feels like our best footy is kind of this unpredictable, helter skelter, chaosy type thing. And is there something getting in the way of us being able to do that?
It's interesting when you say that because it reminds me of the footage pre-game. Maybe it was before the Giants practice match, and they're all sitting on their chairs, and legs are crossed, notepads out, pens, and it's like that's the perception. What's the reality?
Mm,
Hmm.
absolutely.
What about Friday night? I was talking to some people today. I was at
Mm.
training this morning, and pretty much everyone I spoke to, we were all just like, everyone just needs a win. Like everyone just needs a breath, and a win will do it. So, I mean, is there a reality where we can beat the Dogs on Friday night?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course there is. So one of the themes we spoke about in yesterday's show was there's a line in that last Indiana Jones film where he's talking about his life and all this and what he's come face to face with and the power of God and the power of science and the whatever faith and belief. And he said, I've come to learn that it's not about what you believe, it's how hard you believe it.
Hmm.
And you looked at Hawthorn on Thursday night and you thought, yeah, this is a team that's really confident in form and they believe. And then us, who gave a reasonable account of ourselves, we're not in form, we have no confidence, we don't really seem to believe. And in senior AFL or professional sport, the margins are so fine. And so much of what does happen is down to confidence and down to belief, a little bit of luck as well here and there, which we spoke about earlier. But yeah, like in terms of Friday night, I think it's always hard to ask me about some of these because it's only when you get asked a question like this, you realize how little of the match you actually take in when you're kind of
Yeah.
like working on it.
Yeah.
Again, I thought there were signs where they were okay, and there were parts of the game where Box Hill deserved to be more comfortably in front. But then you look at it as well, and you go, Carlton didn't have Luke Bruce ends up kicking 3 goals in basically he kicks a goal after the 3/4 time siren, and he kicks another 2 goals in the last quarter. Well, Carlton didn't have a Luke Bruce out on the field on Friday night,
No.
and you lose a game by 4 points. And this guy's had not a huge amount of the ball, but when the opportunity came to impact, he impacted, and he's kicked 3 goals. And one of them was a really classy goal in traffic, and then 2 other set shots. And well, Carlton's twos don't have that luxury of having a guy like that to kind of just make something happen when you need it to happen. But they still rallied from 5.5 goals down to mount an unlikely comeback and almost win the game. So again, like the seniors, it's like there's some bad and there's some stuff to work on, but there's also like don't be blind to the positives and potentially what you can take out of the game. Yeah, so it's that you said it best. Like everyone needs a win, and if you get a win, that weight gets lifted off the shoulders, and you can be a little bit more glass half full. But while you're losing, you may be trying to answer questions that aren't overly pressing or overly important. You may be getting distracted trying to answer things that aren't necessarily a problem. You're actually not far away from just organically sorting them out.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if on Friday night, hopefully this is what happens, is that we build on the stuff that we did well on last week, take them into this week, execute a little bit better, and are good enough to win the game on the back of it.
What do you think about changes? Number of changes? Do you have anyone in mind? I mean, Jordan Boyd seems to have got through.
I think there's some interesting, potentially more like positional stuff. Like,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of chatter growing about playing Walsh on a wing, which should have been happening on and off here and there for years. I think that I don't think they'll bring him in as such, but just for a different look, I'd like to see Moyer, and particularly if Harry and Charlie are both playing, I'd like to see Moyer out there.
Instead of Kemp?
Kemp should either go back. Jack should probably stay forward. If they want to concede defeat on that. But I thought Jack was good against Richmond as well. But forward last week he was good as well. So I think he's a more natural forward. I think he serves us better forward. I think Kemp isn't a forward. We're wasting time doing that. He's a little bit skittish and unpredictable and whatnot, but playing him in defence, I think I'd like to see. I mentioned this to someone the other day. I wouldn't be against, even if they dropped him, play him on the ball.
Kemp?
Yes. He did that at underage level a little bit. Just play him around the ball a bit. And what was good about Matty Kennedy, arguably the thing we miss most about Matty Kennedy is really good overhead mark in the middle of the ground.
Yeah.
Really strong. If we wanted to go into the corridor, you could hit it to Kennedy. Very strong overhead and courageous and all that stuff. Well, Kemp could maybe sort of be that outlet in the tram lines, but big-bodied guy, could he be a bit of a chop-out type for a Paddy Cripps? If he's just got to try to get his hands on the ball in a stoppage. Look, I've spoken about this before, but one of my favourite like Carlton memories of recent times was Dad and I went out to watch. I think it was Liam Jones' second game in defence against. We were playing Collingwood at Vic Park. Harry Mackay, a few others played that day. But the week before, the word out of the game was that Liam Jones played in defence. Bearing in mind, every Carlton fan has written him off at this point. He's been delisted at the end of the year. He played all right. And he went, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. Anyway, we went out to watch the game, and he was the best man on the ground. And we were just laughing. We were like, this guy, he was playing sort of centre half back, and he was marking everything, and he was bounding out of defence. And we were like, this is what is happening. A little bit of imagination from the coaching group to go, all right, we'll give him a different look. We'll try him somewhere else. We'll have one more. I'll look at him doing something else. And it ended up transforming his career. And I think with a Kemp, not a forward, there's obviously some doubts about him playing back. Just have a look at him doing something else. He played a bit of midfield in his underage years. I don't necessarily think we should try that for the first time in the AFL, but I think there's some positional stuff where if we want to accommodate a Boyd, if he's fit to play, should play. Um, I think Campo's been okay, but again, if you drop someone, it's not the end of the line. It's not the end of their career. We need
Yeah.
to drop someone to bring someone in. So look, I'd like to see Sauce forward, Kemp back if he plays, Walsh out to a wing, Boyd makes sense. I'd like to see Moya given a game. The best he's looked in a Carlton jumper has been at the AFL level, just because of, I think, the service around him.
Yeah.
Gives us a bit of an injection of something new as well, and some excitement, as
Something, some
a
fresh
kid, there's
energy.
some spunk or something. So we wait and see.
Yeah. Oh man, the feels. It's just a fascinating. It's a fascinating environment right now. The Carlton supporter, but it really is. That disconnect, that divide, that I mean, we touch on identity a lot over the last few weeks. Do you sense like identity issues as well across the board, everywhere?
Yeah, I think that just comes.
Can you really have a club that has a singular identity and everyone rows in that direction? Like, does that happen?
I think you need. Yeah, I think you need to. I think you need to have. What is that? Bucks. What do you say? Get off the bus or something. If you're not. There's always at a footy club. Like there's always, and this is why you always take with a grain of salt things that you hear, even if it's from a reputable source or someone who you trust, because at every single footy club, at every single level of the sport in this country, if you wanted to find someone who's not happy with something, you don't have to search high and low in the change room. Like someone's not getting a game, someone's not happy with how they're being used, someone's not happy with a particular relationship they've got with a teammate or a coach, someone's not happy with how maybe a friend's being treated, even if they think they've been treated okay. So there's always going to be a little bit of dissension, because only 22, 23 guys get picked every week. There's lots of players that think they should be getting picked and they're not. But there should, be an identity and a consistency to how you play, because that is it. How you play, how you react. Game awareness is probably, the more I kind of think about it, and I've used it as well, the word structure. What's the structure? What's our structure? What's our plan B? What's our fail safe when things are going wrong? And it's probably just game awareness is the biggest problem. When Richmond are coming, you've got a good lead. It's before halftime. Just take the sting out of it. We don't necessarily need to score the next goal. We don't have to score immediately. Just take the sting out of it. Possess the ball for a little bit. Move them around the field a bit. Just some game awareness. Get into halftime. Reset. Don't have no game awareness, and then before you know it, your leads eroded, your leads evaporated, your opponent's got an incredible amount of confidence and momentum.
Yeah.
And I think that just comes from training that stuff, experiencing that stuff in the past, maturity, and that all leads to that identity thing. And you're kind of like, yeah, do we have that?
Yeah.
It's probably a few too many examples of late where it's like, no, I don't think so. And again, is that coaching piece, as I spoke about earlier, where so it'd be interesting if you had the luxury of being able to go to every single Carlton training session. I used the example earlier. It'd be fascinating if you saw the drills on the field, because that's such an enormous part of this is why you do a particular drill. It's a scenario, and that would be so interesting. Because at Box Hill you do, and I hope it's the case at Carlton. But in my stuff at Box Hill, you're like, oh that's this one, isn't it? Oh,
And
that's
you
this.
could
Yeah,
name the
shit. This
drill.
is the. You're like, this is the drill. You're watching the game on Friday night. You go, this is the drill that we do every week for this express purpose, so that when we play it, we know exactly what to do. It's that great bit in semi-pro where they run the same play over and over and over again. So when they need to use it, they know how to do it. And that's the identity thing. That's all it is really, is just having that confidence in what do we do in situation A? What do we do in situation B? Okay. And it just feels like maybe we just don't have that.
If I had said to you when you started doing the Prendercast that 8-9 years later, whatever it is, we would be in this situation, how do you think that would? Well, what did you think would happen from when you started the podcast to where we are today?
You
I
always
don't
hope
think I've
you
ever
get
asked you
better.
that.
Yeah, look, you
Yeah.
always hope you get better because no one wants, no one wants the Arsenal fan TV paradox where people only want to listen to you when you're shit because they want to hear
Yeah.
meltdowns and they want to hear, they want to hear negatives. Like the dream is that we're flying and we win every week and it's a party every week and it's a celebration of how good we are. But the reality is that's not the case for anybody. Um, I think I spoke about this yesterday. I think what we need to understand and accept is that when building a football team, a football club, when we rebuilt, we stripped everything back, coaches, everything, players. There's this really unquantifiable. It's like this alchemy to create. Like, why does something work?
Hmm.
And if you knew why it worked, everyone would do it. If you knew if it was that easy, everyone would do it. Just hire the right coach, Tez. Why don't you take this guy at this pick? Like if everyone knew the answer to every question and who's going to be the best player in the draft or who's the best player available at this pick or who's the best assistant coach available in the market or who's the best forward coach, mid coach, you'd hire them all and you'd build this Goliath of a just juggernaut of a program. But it's not like that. There's so much unknown. There's so much hidden hope, faith of every decision that Carlton makes, even if we, in the end, even if we don't agree with it, hiring Jack Russell, hiring Brad Lloyd, hiring Michael Voss, taking player X in the draft. Every decision is made in good faith that it's the best decision for the footy club. And it's as informed as it can possibly be. But not every decision works out. And I think that games of football are so hard to win. Finals are so hard to win. Premierships are so hard to win that I think that people have got this level of, Carlton's a bit like this, Essendon's a little bit like this. Even teams that have been successful for a long time, and Geelong's a bit like this, where there's this level of kind of entitlement as to like the Chris Scott conversation, for instance, is like he's only won before he won the 22 with the last flag. He's only won one
Yeah.
flag, and it wasn't really his team, and he only won one flag in 10 years. And it's like he's done a pretty fucking good job in those 10 years, and he's had you there or thereabouts fairly regularly. That just goes that the read shouldn't be he's failed, he hasn't delivered. The read should be this is proof positive of how hard it is to win.
Yeah.
They're getting so much right. They can't quite get there. And then obviously they did. I think that time has just brung that perspective where you go, I want nothing more from the football club than for it to be successful and to be the envy of the league and to wind up opposition fans who just want us to be shit and revel us in us being shit. And there are people at the football club, even if I don't necessarily agree that they're doing a good job, like Brad Lloyd's trying to make that happen. He's been trying to make that happen. Various coaches are trying to make that happen. The players on Thursday night are fucking trying to win. Just didn't quite come together on the night and we didn't. And I think that's as a collective thing as well, where you just got to kind of, again, use that word, divorce yourself from we're not winning. Like the 30-year conversation for me is really funny. It's like the only people who, I know we've spoken about this. Collingwood fans talk more about 95 than Carlton fans do.
Yeah.
Like it's you just go, you guys talk more about this than we do. Going, yeah, we want to win another one and we want to be good enough to win another one. And we haven't been. Yes. This isn't breaking news. Like we haven't been very good at various times. We've been okay at others. We've been good at others. Going, they're so hard to win. Like if you had have asked me years ago, where would we be? You go, well, fucking I hope we've won 5 in a row. I hope we've won one. That we haven't won any doesn't, to me, come as a shock because going back to the Box Hill thing, they're hard. They're so hard to win. And when you're inside each week and you're seeing how hard games of footy are to win and what goes into winning our game of footy, you kind of have an appreciation for it. Yeah, it's not, this isn't an easy caper.
Yeah. That's an interesting one about making the decisions and then having the fortitude to, when you realize that the person making those decisions isn't the right person, how quickly can you change tact, which we clearly don't have a good track record of that.
No. So I could understand back in 21, like Brad Lloyd survived that one, but I think we've done at least one kind of quasi review since then, and we're probably, and every club reviews everything. I think the term review is overblown because every club
I
reviews
agree.
everything
It just
all the
buys
time.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
it just buys time.
every club's looking at everything all the time and refining aspects of their program and how things run and what roles are doing what and who's doing what. Um, but in name, we've had like one full blown review and then kind of like another one, and I think that if this kind of comes a cropper, he's an example, and I hate going to singular example, but he's had enough opportunities to get it right. And if you haven't got it right, then I think we should probably need to try someone else. I think that's probably fair enough. And it's a bit like that with recruiting, is the same thing where recruiter gets however many years, and if it's turns out that they've not really delivered, then we can't trust you then with another 2 and 3 years of picks and trading and players acquisitions and delistings and the like, because your track record at the moment's not great. Hoping you get it right, dangerous. And that's the case with a guy like Lloyd, with Voss, with with everyone in senior positions down there.
Goodness. Yeah. Yeah, I've been battling this resentment almost internally towards the club because, and maybe I am entitled. Maybe I am acting and thinking a little bit in an entitled way that I just want to enjoy the experience, and it's been nothing but dysfunctional for, okay, forget about the 30 years, the last 10, maybe just this group, like, but for 12 weeks, maybe a little bit longer than that, it's just been completely dysfunctional. And I start, if I'm dead honest, I build this resentment towards whoever's in charge and whoever has been in charge over a period of time. But then also I counteract that with, don't be so entitled. You're not entitled to watch a premiership because your parents did and your grandparents did, and everyone else watched 5 of them. And then through that, I find this disconnection between the current generation and the club.
Fans have got this. There are certain fans that have got this weird. A lot of them are opposition fans, but they feel like, and they talk about the premiership thing. And it's like every club's wanting to win a premiership or
Yeah.
trying to build to win a premiership. And if you're not, even if it feels like it's a ways away, and you're not actively trying to put things in place that'll get you there, that's the business of being a football club. But they've got this weird perspective that seeing your team win a premiership validates your support of that team.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not how it works. Like, if Carlton never won another flag in my lifetime, go, yeah, it'd be disappointing as a fan, but I wouldn't stop supporting the team. Like, go, and then you sort of flip it back and you go, well, should I? Should I not support them because we haven't won a flag in 30 years? Should I not be passionate about my team and whatnot? You go, it's a weird perspective. It's this weird, strange thing. And we all want us to get better. And we all hoped at this point maybe we'd be further along, and maybe that end to 23 was real, and a majority of last year as well, where we played some really good football and had ourselves in a good position. And that's what makes this current iteration of the football club so interesting, is because it is so volatile, it is so temperamental as to why is the best so good. And people can dispute this all they want. They weren't disputing it when they walked out or turned the television off, having watched us put Geelong away on the MCG. They weren't saying it when we came from 8 goals down to beat Brisbane up at the Gamma in very quickly as well. They weren't saying it at quarter time in that game against the Giants. They weren't talking about your bottom 10 players and your kicking skills. They weren't talking about any of that stuff. And that's relatively recently in the lifespan of a football club, where the good was so good. So the question is, why is it one or the other? Why is it that, or what we saw against Richmond, or the elimination final? Why is it the ends of the spectrum it feels we operate at? Because at this rate, you're like, even if we found a comfortable band in the middle, we'd be a pretty decent team, it feels like. But just finding that sweet spot has been a challenge. And that's why you and I and other fans and people who are invested in the footy club ask these questions about how are we being run? How are we being coached? What are we trying to do to be better? What are the decisions being made that are leaving us in this position?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, this is the 8th year where I've covered it every single week. And that moment, hate to go back, but I will go back to round one. That moment where the Haynes McGovern, everyone falls over moment, Richmond kick a goal, that literally reminded me of Liam Jones and Levi Casbolt running into each other, or things that we were seeing in 2018. And it's like, is this whole thing just a perception that it is a lie, was a lie, or it just gets so rabbit holey in my mind.
This is what I spoke about earlier. It's not what you believe. How hard do you believe it?
Yeah.
It's like, are we just not that good, or are we? I'm at the glass half. I'm still the glass half full side of that at the moment. That could change at a moment's notice. It's very volatile, but I'm
You mean
still
for
at that
this year
moment of,
or in general?
oh, just in general, because you have like moments where you. I was relatively even keeled for the most part on Thursday in terms of
Yeah.
just the result and what had happened, but that could change. That could change quickly. I could get ultra emotional, but yeah, it's what do you believe is real? Do you believe the weeks we've put together where we look like an absolute second class, second rate amateur rabble, or were we second on the ladder or game clear and second on the ladder in round 18 or something? It's a long way into a year to be
Yeah.
sitting in a reasonable position. There's a pretty good sample there to kind of go, this team's going pretty well. And then things kind of out of our control and in fairness, out of the coach's control, slipped away from them a bit. But so what's real? Do you want to take the positive as real, or do you want to take the negative as real? It's probably easy to take the negative because it's
Mm.
happening right now, and you don't allow yourself to be excited by the prospect of what it might lead to, I suppose. It's like if you have no expectations, you can't be disappointed. So if your expectations are, yeah, we're actually bad, and then we end up being bad, you're like, okay, well, that's what I thought. But if we end up being good, you're like, oh, that's a surprise. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if there's a little bit of that going on as well, potentially, but whatever the reality is, those in charge at the moment have to figure it out very quickly
Yeah.
and uh, course correct if they need to.
Yeah. It's been one of the better sessions of therapy for me personally, on a selfish note.
Dear.
Thank you. No, thank you.
No.
It's been great. Yeah, it's been I mean, it's like a soul searching week after 2 rounds, which is just weird. But I really do appreciate you coming on and spending some time. And yeah, I don't know. It's just more confusing, I think.
Look, ultimately in footy, it's like what'll be will be.
Yeah.
You know, you and I, everyone watching this, everyone who listens to us, everyone who follows Carlton, I would like to think we all hope that we're all in it for to see the team be successful and whatnot. But I hope that it's the experience following the team isn't coloured by wholly and solely that need and want for success. Because I've said it a few times tonight. Everyone at the footy club wants the footy club to be the best it can possibly be and the best it can be in the league and all that stuff. There are a lot of other footy clubs trying to do that as well, and two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. We go out and play Hawthorn on the weekend. They're actively trying to beat us. We go out to play the Bulldogs. They're actively trying to beat us. Sometimes you're just not quite good enough. Sometimes you're a million miles off the pace. Sometimes you are actually not bad, but you just come up short. And I think that there's just a level of frustration in the community wholly and solely because of round one, which we can't say enough was a disaster and embarrassing and humiliating. Absolutely awful. But I just don't think that's where that team. And whatever it takes to unpack that, to turn that around, is the job of Voss and Lloyd and Wright and Cook and whoever else is involved to turn that around. And I hope that they're capable of doing that. And if it is determined that they're not, then like I keep saying, there has to be change
Yeah.
because you can't just sit on your hands and wait for things to turn around. I just want
Well
to say,
said.
actually, I want to get your position on some of the more emotional stuff. This sort of didn't come up in the course of the chat, so I apologize for springing it on you. But
No, you're good.
one of the more fascinating things out of a result like Thursday night is that emotional stuff that comes out, and there's been so much interesting. Do we want to call it coping or trying to make sense of it? It's like Doc needs to be retired immediately. Walsh is no good. We need to trade him. Um, you know, disaster trading for Jagger Smith. The kid hasn't played a game for us, and it's like disaster. Losing this year's first round pick. Or TDK is going to leave, and it's sort of like A, that kind of stuff's not a helpful way to be thinking, and B, the other one, Charlie's got to go to halfback. Charlie's got to play in defence, and it's just so interesting that the places that the mind goes to kind of rationalize or try to make sense of this, and what do we need to do to turn things around. And it's like the club won't be trading Sam Walsh. They won't be playing Charlie at halfback. Jagger Smith hasn't played a game of football for us. And while that's a shame, I'm still looking forward to seeing him roll out for us next year. And what a great moment it'll be for him when he gets his first touch of the year, and there'll be this lovely kind of knowing gesture from the crowd. But it's just such an interesting place as to where people have gone to try to prescribe the cure for what we're going through at the moment. And it's like these incredibly radical, like blow the
Yes.
joint up, and you're like, and
Yeah.
and maybe Graham Wright is thinking about something radical down the line, and maybe we have to be prepared to lose or move on someone to accommodate something else, or but all of those things at the same time, start again, like
Well,
blow the joint up. It's like, no, we don't need to do that.
I saw the Doc thing after the St Kilda practice match.
Yeah, it's like
That was
I don't know
like,
where you. I don't know if you saw the tweet I sent out on Thursday night, but I'm like, I'm just prepared for this guy to give this guy a bit more time,
mm.
because the reality is who comes in for him.
Well, I think there was a level of frustration with the selection in the final. I mean, I said it last week when he was a sub in round one. That's where I kind of turned a bit. And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. He was deemed fit to play, form included in everything, but he was deemed fit to play for the final full game. But then he wasn't deemed to play fit or in form for the first game of the season. You made him the sub. So now we have selection integrity, but we didn't then. But now we do, and that's where I sat on the Doc conversation. But yeah, it got vicious against him pretty quickly against
Even
Saints
the
practice
Richmond
match.
one, like even the Richmond, and to say like in one of the games, the GWS game or something, he played like it felt like he played the last quarter, and it's against Richmond he came on and had the one. I think I've used the example on the show where every club, every fan base has got like a scapegoaty thing, and I'm not saying that a lot of us have turned to Doc as the scapegoat, but everyone used to lose their mind at the one thing Lockie Plowman might have done that was like really bad. Just lose it, and that's the mistake they've been waiting for him to commit to go after him. Even if he's had an unbelievable game to that point, he's been fantastic. He missed a target, he's shit. That's what I've been waiting for him to do. Doc, the handball and the mix up with Cowan against Richmond was awful. It was no good. But like as an impact in terms of coming off the bench and winning the ball and trying to do, he had 14 odd touches, hit the post twice. He's not far away from having a really, really positive impact on that quarter really early and getting us going. Oh, but he burned a teammate. He could have handballed off to a teammate. He snapped instead. Hit the post. He didn't put the ball in the second tier like fucking Mitch McGovern against Collingwood. Like he's hit the post. Like he's missed not by very much. In the end, I just think that it's it's illustrative of a club that's like in a real hurry in round 2 to kind of, as I said, I just think that Tuni Rico's couple of bouts of cancer. He's been in the wars and he's been up against it. And he's played 9 quarters of football before this weekend in 18 months. He's done some okay things. He's looked rusty otherwise. He's not alone there. But that's actually him in isolation, and the conversation around him in isolation is really interesting. It's like he might be done. He might be done. But I don't think we know in round 2 after what has he played 5 quarters for the year?
Not like barely.
So it's
If you
that's that one
include a
where
practice match, then yeah. But
that's the one where it's like he's done, he's finished, he's one of the problems, and you're like, I don't know, I don't think we know if that's the case yet.
yeah,
But heaping this kind of negativity on him, all things considered, I'm certainly hoping that he can. And again, look, that might be a consequence too of just once Newman goes down, let's not overthink it. Let's just send him to half back again. Let's not try to turn him into something that he's maybe never quite been or only been as a pinch hitter. Let's just send him to half back, some continuity, some familiarity, and let's go from there.
well, especially with Newman out as the organizer
mm,
of things behind the ball.
yeah, and that's that conversation piece around moving Sauce back, and then out of necessity you push him forward, and then what are you doing with Kemp? Like Ollie Hollands he's been okay at halfback, but is he a halfback? Don't know. There's a few things where it's, have we just overthought things a little bit? And maybe Doc falls into that. Maybe Doc would have been better off just going back to a tried and true familiar role, and that would take a bit of pressure off him. But he's, as I said, I keep saying harping on about it, but I just feel like he's an interesting conversation piece in that I think he's sort of deserves, not necessarily earned the right because he's been injured and ill and whatnot, but I think he sort of deserves the right to be given the opportunity to work through some form issues.
Yeah, that's fair.
I remember we spoke to Mark Murphy a couple of years ago, and he spoke about like when he was dropped, and he was really good about it. And he said, "Look, if I wasn't playing good footy, that's just how footy works. Not a problem. But like, give me an opportunity to kind of fix what I'm not doing well. Tell me what it is, and then give me the chance to go out there and do it." And I'm in the same frame of mind with Doc, with anyone really, but a senior experienced player. Look, that one, where he should have marked the ball. Is that in the third quarter? And you're like,
End of the third
that was
quarter.
disappointing. It's like, that was disappointing. No two ways about it. I think we should probably be careful about questioning Sam Doherty's courage. I think that
Yeah.
creates a really uncomfortable conversation, given everything the guy's been through and to get himself back out there. But I just think he should be given the opportunity. You bring some things up, you talk about some things we need to be done better. Here's the opportunity to do them better. And if there's still question marks, then that's fine. But until that time, and he's not alone in this, lots of other players in that boat. He's sort of just the poster child for the point I'm making. Give him an opportunity to right or wrong, make amends, et cetera, get some form back without throwing the baby out with the bathwater in round 2 and saying we need to trade Harry, trade Sam, trade Walsh, retire Doherty immediately, etc. You're like, oh, it's a bit much.
One of the
Jeez.
most fascinating things I heard recently, I forgot his name. He came on the fan cams after Richmond, and he had gone through a bout of, I think he said leukemia or cancer or something in his arm, and he said, "I'd rather have cancer again than watch that performance." And so
I mean, look,
it's deep. Like,
if
it's a
anyone
deep
can say
thought.
if anyone can say that and put that thought in perspective, it's probably that guy from his own lived experience. It's
Yeah.
probably telling
So
us a
I
thing or
get
two
it.
about it.
I get it, as in, I mean, I don't get that situation, but the level of care factor that the supporters show. And I actually spoke to a guy who was at the door today, and he's like, "Oh, I work in sales." And I said, "Like, how you going? Like, you must be receiving, so many phone calls. Like, are you okay?" He's like, I said, like, "I know that can be pretty hard." He's like, "No, it's good, because the worst thing would be if no one was calling. So I was kind of refreshed to hear him say that.
You know, even in my storied career working the phones down at the Carlton Football Club many years ago, um, yeah, you'd live through stuff like that where you
Yeah.
have a bad result, or and then you're on the phones on Monday morning and people are ringing in, and it sort of became this weird kind of like quasi like therapy thing where someone would talk
Yeah.
to you and they just kind of want to vent, and they know they're not going to get through. Who was the coach at the time? It might have been Mick Rats initially, then Mick. Well, no, they're getting Sean on the membership hotline. They're not getting Mick Malthouse or Greg Swan or Stephen Trigg or whoever. But sometimes just having a bit of a vent was kind of good, and you'd sort of go, yeah, look, I understand where you're coming from. Yes, of course it's disappointing. And they kind of, in a weird sort of way, you're this unofficial kind of like mouthpiece for the footy club, unintended. And just kind of hearing that, yeah, it's like, dude, like everyone here is flat as that we've lost a game and lost badly. Because it's like working at the Carlton Football Club when you're flying is incredibly easy gig. Collingwood's the same, Essendon's the same, Richmond's the same. It's like, yeah, if you're up and about, working for one of these clubs is like that guy in sales is he doesn't even have to pick up the phone.
No.
Sponsorship or the guys in commercial don't have to worry about where the next sponsorship deal's coming from, or if they're going to reach a sales quota, or the membership team's going to reach a push target or whatever they call it. But yeah, it's this sort of strange thing where we all know that everyone cares, and sometimes you can maybe be a bit too emotional. I think that's the stage we reached. I think that's the stage we reached probably Thursday night. All things considered,
Yeah.
it's like,
Thursday
yeah,
night
we
was
lost
like
the
a
game.
purge. There was a purge of, well, I mean, most bad losses have it. It's a purge of emotion and something deep down. And most of the time when people get it out, then they feel good. Then
Yeah.
they feel good. It's just like, just get the darkness out, and then it's out of my system and it's gone.
You just want to have a vent and you want to spew it out. And then once it's been listened to or heard or read, you kind of feel better for it, don't you? And I think,
Yeah.
like, yeah, if we're 1-0 and lose that game, people are kind of a little bit more even keeled about it. And there was moments where I was sort of like, yeah, this isn't the performance to. And can I just say something also? And this is going to be a bit rich coming from two guys who have like a Carlton podcast.
Yeah.
Don't ring into Finey. Don't ring into the talkbacks after a game and give these idiots a soundbite
Yeah.
if you're disappointed. Don't do it, because this is what they want. They want disaffected, angry, irrational fans to ring in and give them the clip which they can attach to a social post as a mockery. I'm convinced that some of these are just like, I might start doing it when a team I hate loses. I might just ring up and just go on a rant about, pretend to be a fan of that club, because I'm convinced that's what's happening a little bit too. But yeah, Thursday night wasn't the result to lose your rag over.
Honestly, like what I noticed, I agree with what you're saying with, SEN and that. I don't remember the fan cams. Even the 2 losses we've had this year, it hasn't been yes, there's anger. It's been deep. It's like a deep sadness. It hasn't been yelling and screaming and banging on the tables. Like there's been a bit of animated language, but not really that crazy. Like not compared to what it was in 2019, 2020, when I think we're all just trying to figure out like what's happening here. There's a new element to talk back after a game. And I find a really clear separation between what I hear on SEN and that yelling and screaming and on the fan cams. It's almost, I mean, it's emotional. Like it's a spiritual, emotional sadness.
I think when you're ringing up talkback radio, I've used this word a lot in the last couple of days. It's very performative.
Yeah.
It's to make the sting the next day. It's to be replayed. It's to be Mario from Doncaster. They still play that. Richmond, the JFK, Jackie Kennedy in the dress and all that. They still play that clip, and it's like a funny talkback radio moment. I think there's this kind of strange want for it to be the clip that the news cycle refer back to illustrate Carlton despair.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, just don't give it to them. Like, don't give them the oxygen. Don't worry about it. Who cares? And as for the stuff that you're getting, I think it's just because you wait so long. You wait from to play footy, and when you've been slow out of the gate, you've been waiting to hear the song and sing the song and revel in a win, and you haven't had the opportunity to do it. That's where the disappointment comes from.
Mm.
And just externally as well, there's a lot of people that revel in Carlton, Schadenfreude, who revel in us. You work with them, or you go to school with them, or whatever. It's like, just don't. I was speaking to a Hawthorn guy the other day, and I just said, yeah, it was really even contest. We weren't quite good enough to win the game. Yeah, it's disappointing. There were some good signs. There was things we need to do better. Yeah, Hawthorn are a good side, informed, confident. Um, we just weren't quite good enough to win on the day. Like, we weren't embarrassed. That was the week before. So it's an interesting kind of conversation to be a part of at the moment. I think at the moment I'm still glass half full because I do believe we are a more talented team than what we're showing. And I do believe that there's the leadership inside the football club. Dangerous to have the Messiah thing with a Graham Wright, but I do think that he's a guy who will not wait. He will not sit on his hands, who will be decisive if and when, the time comes that he needs to be. So
This is his first gig as a CEO. This will be his first gig as a CEO, right?
yeah, but it's good though because so
No, it's
the
hunger.
But the Carlton CEO role in recent years has had a couple of different remits, and you think about Trigg after Swanee? I'm not sure, I think so, but he was a bit more kind of like community minded and that stuff. And then Kane Little was more commercially minded, needed to kind of get that side of the club rolling, and he did. And then Brian Cook was kind of just steady hand, experienced operator, etc. But the club, like in terms of the off-field stuff, in terms of sponsors and partners and whatnot, is in a very, very strong position. So
Flying.
the focus now is football again. So the fact that Graham Wright is a football operator, yes, he gets his first opportunity in the big chair and it's what he's wanted. But what the role requires him to be is kind of exactly what his strengths are, which is encouraging. Because when the shit hit the fan under Little, while the off-field stuff was really, really good, he didn't have the experience, he didn't have the expertise to deal with the on-field stuff, and that's why there was discontent because he was getting involved in it and all that kind of stuff. But here it feels like Wright's the right man for the job. He's in the right place at the right time with the right skill set that we need at the moment. He's not an accountant running a football club. He's a football man running a football club, which
Yeah.
needs what he's got to offer. So that's sort of exciting. And I keep saying it, but I'm sort of accepting of if something needs to happen, if a decision needs to be made, he'll make it because he's shown that he's done it in the past. He's capable of doing it, and whatever that decision is, I think will hopefully be for the best of the footy club. But in the meantime, we just have to wait and see, and we get another opportunity on Friday night to roll around and hopefully be better. And um, absolutely capable of winning the game. We just got to go out and do it.
Where do you sit? What's your game spot? Do you have a specific spot at Marvel?
Is it a home game or an away game this week? I'm not sure if it's home or away.
Pretty sure it's
We've
home game.
Dad and I have got seats. We've got the discontinued membership package, which is the seats at home and away games, which they don't offer anymore. They're just honouring for existing members. You could probably, if you ask them for it, they sell it to you. But so we're like level 3 in like row C, kind of just on like a half forward flank for away seats. And then our home Marvel seats are like kind of level 2 on the wing.
Yeah.
But I think we've been moved. I think we've actually moved a bit more. We were kind of like off center wing a little bit, but I think they've moved us. They've consolidated some seats. So I think we actually might have ended up getting maybe some better. I don't know, better seats. Maybe we'll wait and
Nice.
see. The reserve seat's amazing. You just rock up. You can just rock up whenever you want. Racing. Having to upgrade. If you do
you
go
know,
every week, I strongly recommend.
I cancelled my reserve seat after Hawthorn last year.
It was an emotional decision.
Had enough. Yeah, had enough.
I suppose it's tough
No.
for you because, like, how many games do you get to?
I mean, all of them in Melbourne, but
Okay, because
I just don't use the reserve seat because it was a single seat. You get
when do
me?
you do the cams?
Yeah, from home.
Oh, is it just how quickly do you get home?
Oh, mate, I sprint.
I'm like, this happens really quickly.
Yeah,
Like, are you
I'm
leaving
home.
at 3/4 time?
No, I'm home. I rush home. Yeah, siren goes. I hear one rendition of the song if it's ours, and then I'm
There you go.
on my bike, and I'm gone. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Just need a win. Just need a win.
Mate, I said it off the top. If we get a win on Friday night, the conversation about us will be. I don't think it'll be the 180 that we saw for North Melbourne and St Kilda, but it will be. It will be like different.
It'll just be a breath, like just a
Yeah.
sigh of something.
You know, mate, they probably won't even talk about us at all because Carlton sort of winning a game, being okay, is not news to them. It's the old media. If it bleeds, it leads. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, club in disarray. Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, Richmond were in disarray. Sells more papers, creates more column inches, demands longer segments on all the talk shows than those teams being okay or good. Because who cares? Fans don't want to hear about that. So
yeah.
we probably won't be spoken about at all. They'll cover us briefly on the Saturday morning shows, and then after that, not at all. And if we lose, then there'll be pitchforks, like they'll be camping out at Princess Park again.
Going into Collingwood as well,
Yeah,
like 6 day
yeah,
break. Yeah,
100%. Perfect. They'll have all the articles already written as they did in pre-season, and they'll be able to press publish on them. Bottom six players, ball users,
grinders and
coaching,
battlers.
all that crap that's already been written is just sitting in the documents folder on all the journos' computers. They'll be happy because I'll be able to push publish on them. And if we win, that's how they work.
Yeah. Alrighty. That's been brilliant. What's happening this week on the Prendercast? What's your schedule now? It's a bit different now, right? You release things differently for the Patreon members.
We haven't been able to do a midweek one just yet. Hopefully, with some scheduling stuff. Timbo's Fab's had some work bits and bobs, and Timbo's just sold his house. So hopefully we can get back in the rhythm of doing those shortly. But we're just doing the standard sort of EPs and mailbox and whatnot, and then fingers crossed we can get back to doing the midweek one, like as soon as possible. Hopefully next week. But yeah, nothing much from me. We've got fortunately there's not another clash. Box Hill are playing Saturday afternoon, which is good. First home game of the year, so that's exciting. So just getting all that stuff out of the way, and then hopefully on Sunday the boys will reconvene and chat our first win of the year. That's the plan.
Inshallah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, guys and girls, everyone, have a great night. See you tomorrow. Go Blues.